Welcome collection asked a cross-section of their collaborators and community, what does it mean to be human now? In this film of around 11 minutes, 11 contributors respond, sharing their personal experiences of life and work during the COVID-19 pandemic. Before the start, they are described in order of appearance. Rihanna Wolcott is a Black British researcher in her mid-20s. She's of medium height and describes herself as curvy, with long brown hair that is styled in waist-length twists, which she wears in a high ponytail. She wears a meadow green floral V-necked top with long sleeves and a silver nose ring. She has large brown eyes framed with black eyeliner and wears large gold black onyx droplet earrings. She sits on a sofa clutching a yellow mug. A pastel wall behind her shows a blurry image of what might be a calendar and 2 A4 sketches showing bold illustrations. Days Agaji is a Black British climate activist in her early 20s who identifies as neurodivergent. She is 5'1", brown-eyed, and describes herself as curvy, with dark brown textured wavy curls which are drawn back from her face, 2 stray wispy ends framing her face. She sits on the edge of a white-sheeted bed with floral trim in a whitewashed bedroom. 2 large windows with white sash curtains are behind her, small trails of ivy climbing the edges. She wears a white crochet sleeveless top and faded blue bootleg jeans. Michael Theobold, a long-term visitor, is a white man in his early 70s. He is 5'9", with short, straight white hair split into a neat left-hand parting. He has the ghost of a moustache, and blue eyes sit behind black-rimmed spectacles. He wears a blue and white gingham-style shirt under burgundy cardigan zipped up to the tummy. A grey and white plaid jacket is over this, and a navy mask, indicating I lip read in white cotton threading, hangs loosely round his neck. He sits in a large beige floral armchair in a room dotted with an assortment of papers and a desk telephone. Michael describes himself as profoundly deaf, with 2 behind-the-ear hearing aids. Stephen Griffiths is a Black British man in his mid-50s and the Copenhagen Youth Project lead. He is 5'6", of medium build, with short black afro hair, brown eyes, and a stud is visible in his left ear. He wears a thick gold chain necklace and yellow t-shirt that seems to show an image of someone with thick dreadlocks tied in bunches. The rest of the image is obscured by a large grey hoodie zipped up to the waist, and he sits in a room with red walls and a smattering of vinyl records, keyboard, electric guitar, and 2 speakers. Dolly Sen, an artist and mental health activist, is in her early 50s, 5'8", and describes herself as of large build. She has dark brown shoulder-length hair, brown eyes, and olive skin with some white patches of vitiligo, and identifies as a non-binary, mad, disabled artist. She sits in a grey padded chair, a white cushion nestled into her lower back. A framed photo of what appears to be a young child is on a window ledge behind her, and a table stand to her left houses a large moose head with a face mask and a red collection tin. Dolly wears a loose burgundy t-shirt which reveals her tattooed arms, which are adorned with a variety of unclear words and images. Caroline Newton is a teenage cancer nurse specialist in her early 40s. She is of medium height and describes herself as curvy, with a short curly blonde bob and large light brown eyes. She wears a silver necklace with 2 interweaving circles just visible beneath the collar of her colourful shift dress, which shows painted scenes of palm trees, jagged mountains, and campervans. 4 small framed prints that seem to show female headshots on an album or book cover from the 1940s or 50s are on the wall behind her. A curved blue and white vase holding several tall sprigs of foliage is on a table next to this. Jamie Hale is white, of medium height and slim build, and in their late 20s. They have short auburn hair, the ends of which have been tinged with bleach, and are a poet, writer, and performer. They wear thin-rimmed burgundy spectacles under thick, slightly arched brows and a white clinical face covering which conceals a small beard. They wear a dark grey and white check shirt, visible under an open brown suede and leather bomber jacket. Jamie is a wheelchair user. Their carer, unseen, holds a black umbrella open behind them, where a blurry background of trees, a block of flats, and a gated fence are visible. The vacuum cleaner is an artist and activist. He is 40 years old with shoulder-length brown hair held slightly back from his face and over his ears by large clear-rimmed glasses, behind which are blue eyes framed by faint laugh lines. He has a well-kempt moustache that curves just past the corners of his mouth and describes himself as white British. The vacuum cleaner sits on a sofa amidst scatter cushions, holding a mug. 2 potted plants, one with splaying green tendrils, are on a window ledge behind him. A wooden cabinet to his right has a pink Art Deco-style fringed lampshade and several small brown bottles that resemble essential oils. The vacuum cleaner wears a bright yellow jumper with the logo Keep On Raven, with the image of a bird wearing headphones and 2 musical notes. Michael Benisi is a professor of psychology in his mid-30s. He is 5'11" with short, thick, multi-tonal grey hair, styled in a side parting with a low fade. He describes himself as olive-skinned and a British-Iranian scientist. He has a salt and pepper beard, dark brown eyes set under thick dark brows, and a mole on his right cheek. He sits on a sofa with a large floor plant to his right and bay window behind him. He wears a white crewneck jumper and black top underneath. Rina Morali is in her late 30s, a teacher, and is of medium height with long dark brown hair which covers her shoulders in sections of wavy tresses. She describes herself as brown-skinned and sits in a classroom that includes a blurred image of a human torso anatomy model, an assortment of books, a microscope, and a colourful board with protractor sketches. Rina wears a floral monochrome V-necked dress with short sleeves and black tights. Jess Tom is a white woman in her early 40s of medium height and build and a wheelchair user. She has short, curly brown hair and bright blue eyes. She wears a black crewneck top with gold circular shapes on both arms. She speaks to the camera through a window, seated on a wooden chair, a bookshelf of files and ring binders behind her. Jess has Tourette's, her most frequent tics identified as biscuit, hedgehog, and chest banging, which you may notice in the film. Sometimes, when the participants talk, or when a media clip is heard, the screen is split into 2 or 3 segments, showing other images. Rows of houses stretching along a road littered with cars. Homes displaying homemade posters of "We love the NHS." People wearing face masks. A London Overground station. A bookshop. A banner bearing the words "No Justice, No Peace, Black Lives Matter." The glow of a street lamp seeping through branches in a night sky, the reflection of a sea of trees bordering a river beneath a speckled autumnal sky, back streets, families, and the sea rippling towards the sunset. As the film begins, fading in and out, each within their own video square, the speakers ask the camera, "What does it mean?" before joining together in voicing their theme and completing the sentence. They are then each shown to contemplate the question. Bold white text against a black background reads, "We asked a cross-section of our collaborators and community, what does it mean to be human now?" In this film, our 11 contributors respond to the question, generously sharing their personal experiences of life and work during the COVID-19 pandemic. Please note that this film includes references to racism, ableism, and death from COVID.
The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades, and this country...
The government has issued a stark warning that we are
Jamie's
at a tipping
voice.
point.
It's felt quite frightening to suddenly experience the whole world as a time bomb.
If you or anyone in your household has a high temperature or a new and continuous cough, even if those symptoms are mild.
The vacuum cleaner.
I found myself howling in the kitchen, and I had to stop listening to the news because it was really like this
He looks up, twitching his lips.
sense of a profound trauma happening and playing out.
Jess.
Wasn't so much frightened of getting COVID and getting really sick, but I was really frightened, Biscuit, of not being given a chance to survive. As a disabled person, I was worried that there would be judgments made about my body and my quality of life, and I was terrified.
Rihanna.
I remember I used to call my dad and really irritate him by just sobbing on the phone to him, asking him not to go into work because he works for TfL, and I kept hearing about Transport for London workers getting sick.
Days.
In 1 week, I lost my nan, my Uncle Fred, and also a family friend. It did take me to quite a dark place, but the fact that it hurt so much meant that they meant so much.
I've been very aware of my mortality for a long time now due to serious illness, but I hadn't necessarily engaged with the idea that it might be something external.
Caroline.
Usually when people are unwell or they are dying, they have their family with them. The idea of people having to be completely alone, that has been very, very hard.
She nods slowly, pursing her lips, and offers a weak smile. Mike.
It's a sort of thing, rather like living in a country where you're being watched by cameras all the time, only that the Germans watching you.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
To go months without the touch of others, it made you think how important that hug really is. But to be honest, me and my flatmate, we did have weird moments of where we would just sit and hug each other because we realised in this house, we are the only ones who can help each other.
The screen fades, rising on blocks of flats at dawn. Stephen.
We knew there would be young people out there who couldn't stay in their houses for whatever reason. And so we went out to ensure they were safe and they had everything they needed to get through this period.
What would we have done if we didn't have social media this time? What would we have done if we didn't have WhatsApp calls and house party and blah, blah, blah? I know that I think it would have been a very different situation, particularly for people who are isolating alone.
Roller skates on a sun-kissed pavement.
Watching children and young people really cut off for that period from so many things they do. And those that are involved in sport, the ones who are performing at a good level, have suddenly missed 8 months of their practice. And when they go back to it, I don't know that they can get back to where they were.
A young girl walks hand in hand with her family. Rena.
We can do everything that we can to try and protect them and shield them, but there has to be a balance between protecting them from the physical damaging aspects of the virus, but also to protecting them from the mental aspects of the virus, which, their social, emotional development side of things. But now we're starting to see a little bit more kind of the behaviour wobbles, a bit more anger, I guess, not knowing how to deal with their anger, not kind of having those skills.
A hand-drawn rainbow on a window pane.
People right around the south of England joined the rest of the UK
big clap.
to say thank you to NHS workers who are on the front line, of course, of the coronavirus crisis.
Being able to peer out of my garden door, Biscuit, and be seen by my neighbours somehow felt important. I hadn't vanished completely and I still existed.
Dolly.
But actually I saw how the community can lift not just one person but the whole town. So for example, myself and my partner are disabled and we had neighbours check to make sure we were okay. So my neighbours became my family, and that's what I think it is. It's to realise we are all family.
A montage of scenes.
Indicate that people from BAME groups are 4 times more likely to die from COVID-19 than their white ethnic counterparts. The ONS points to social inequality as a major...
I think as a black person in the pandemic, you're definitely more vulnerable than the rest of the populace. Our experience of the healthcare system is less successful than other people's.
A train station.
I've already seen so many people saying that they're going to opt out of any vaccine, they're going to test it on us without our consent. And how can you say that they're foolish for saying things like that when that is written throughout our histories? That has happened. That has happened at the hands of different governments before. The fears that our elders have are founded.
She shrugs, shaking her head as the screen fades, rising on mic.
I have a very big problem with people who wear masks because I am deaf and I am a lip reader deaf rather than a signer. And all that's been taken away from me except for transparent masks, whatever you might have, face masks and so on. So it makes it very difficult for me, and I literally have to ask people to write things down rather than ask them to raise their masks, which is a risk. But some people naturally do.
I've definitely become weaker during the pandemic. And there's a number of reasons for that. Waiting on the correct wheelchair to be fitted, the 4 or 5 months I spent without adequate nutrition because I was waiting on a procedure that wasn't being done because of COVID. That's had an impact that is quite likely to be long-term and not that likely to be very reversible, which is quite upsetting if I think about it. But I try and weigh that against my increased creative output and accept that my body will do what it does and I will do what I do.
A speckled evening sky covers endless fields. Mike plays the piano. A discarded face mask lies in a rain-soaked gutter, the silhouetted reflection of trees overhead. Michael Benisi.
In terms of how we think and how we interact with the world around us, people often think about creativity as giant acts of creativity. I mean, you can be creative even simply washing the dishes in some respect. So I think there's been little subtle things in our everyday life where we're having to all be creative in different ways.
A graffiti-covered wall reading "Home Sweet Home." A walker on a forked country road.
Being human changed a lot, where it was kind of connecting back to the more simpler life and more simpler things that, you know, are innate to human beings and what we love.
I didn't go outside for 3 months, but in those 3 months I nurtured a lot of 99p basil pots from local supermarkets because it was the best I could do.
When you cut out the commute into central London, you just get so much more time. And I started lockdown, like I think everyone did, thinking I'd pick up all these new hobbies, and some I did. Like I bought 26 kilograms of flour and I've been steadily working my way through it.
I've loved spending time with my little boy. There's been times where he's been tricky. It's given me an incredible opportunity to spend this time with him at aged 4, which I don't think I would ever have as a working mum.
During COVID, everyone kind of stopped using less. People started saving money just because they didn't buy what they didn't need. Thinking of it like that and thinking about the resources that you're using, it makes you start to think, oh, maybe I could do without that extra pair of Nike trainers like the 3 that I have.
Maybe this time is a time that will help people to realise the things that are important, and consuming and materialism is not the thing that helps us through a crisis.
Red brick towns along a Black Rock coastline.
How do we tackle the structural inequalities that mean that disabled people or people of colour suffer from COVID more? We have to look at it, and it's not pleasant. It is profoundly distressing what people are telling me, but their stories should not be lost, and that community needs to be heard.
A face mask dangles from someone's hand.
It's interesting to hear lots of people being anxious to sort of get back to normal, but I would really hope that we can do better than that. I want to get back to a world that isn't the sort of same old exclusion of particular groups. The old normal wasn't working for lots of people. It wasn't working for disabled people. It wasn't working for lots of people who had non-normative experiences. So I would like us to create a new normal that considers a diversity of bodies, minds, perspectives. Biscuit.
A montage of landscapes and scenes.
We want to live lives of where we flourish, of where we can become the people that we want to see, you know, where we want our morals and values being upheld by the way that governments are run, you know, and that kind of like relentlessness to say, you know, we deserve better. That's where we have our power, and that youthful energy, that kind of like uncontrollable spirit. I think that's what we should be doing.
Each within their own video square, the speakers fade one after the other as the screen fades to darkness and the film ends.